As we know, Danny, the inaugural VAR final yesterday with Forest in mind, was it a good advert for the technology when you consider that it was on show and everybody was going to be looking at it? I'm thinking of penalties not given with Huddersfield in mind. What's your take?
No, I don't think it was. I think the general consensus of opinion is that they messed up. The first one was a pen. It did look a little bit elaborate the way he fell after on first viewing. But actually, when you watch it back, it's a penalty. It's not difficult to give that decision. I don't know why they didn't, why they decided. It's okay the referee missing it. I think sometimes you do miss things. You're allowed. That's why VAR's there. And it was a clear and obvious error. The second one, I think, was a more 50-50 call. I can live with that one. I think if we were only talking about that one, I'd understand it more. But
so this was its big moment and it came up short.
The problem was with the second one, from a Huddersfield perspective, is that apparently they didn't even look at it. They didn't review it as a penalty. They just let it go. That's the word apparently that come out.
That is the word. The PGMOL said it was a threshold. Threshold. And it wasn't high enough for them to get involved.
In a game of this magnitude, it should have been looked at to take 30 seconds or a minute to give them time to assess whether it was or it wasn't. But they can feel hard done by to a certain degree, and I don't think it was a good advert. But how many times have we said that? You know my views on VAR anyway. I mean the implementation of it and the way it's worked hasn't been. You can't say this season it's been.
But your views on VAR are different to the outcomes of this particular game. Your views on VAR are particularly based upon lack of spontaneity and the breaking up of the game and the taking away of the emotion. This is penalty decisions that VAR should be involved in and should want.
The way it's implemented.
Yeah, but I looked at both penalties, and again, will suffer the observations never having been a player, but I felt both of those were 50-50. Not the second one. I thought the second one certainly wasn't a penalty, but I thought the first one, but I watched it. I watched the commentators listen to it. The commentators couldn't pick it up either. They weren't sure. They weren't sure themselves.
Well, they were absolute. I mean, as I said, didn't watch it. I listened to it on the radio, and they were...
Because he looks like he pulls his leg away.
Yeah.
But they said... So it was Ian Holloway and I think it was Dave Connolly, was it, doing it with Sam? Mm-hmm. And they were adamant it was a pen straight away. You know, they watched it was like it's a pen. And even Ian Holloway, no experience, was like, I can't believe that it's so blatant. And I thought, well, that can't be right. You know, if it's that blatant with the VAR, they must have got. And then I saw it, and it was like, it's a penalty.
Yeah,
you can't have the way VAR's work.
But VAR looked at it, didn't it?
Yeah.
So what you've got?
It's not the first time.
So you've got VAR in a championship final. So these championship players are not acclimatised to playing with VAR. So you're not sitting there watching anybody that's used to playing it week in and week out. You're with officials that are used to working with it week in and week out. You've got a Premier League referee, and I know that Mark Halsey was prepared to give the other two referees credit on their last game of the season, but not John Moss. But that doesn't necessarily mean that John Moss is a bad referee just because Mark Halsey doesn't rate him. So you've got Premier League referee, you've got Premier League VAR, you've got VAR looking at it, a referee on the pitch didn't give it, VAR didn't give it, but we all think it was.
Well, the majority, not everybody.
I'm challenging the perspective. I mean, I feel sorry for Huddersfield because these are controversial moments. I thought their performance on the day wasn't great, and that not necessarily should have been a bigger issue about the lack of quality that they had. But notwithstanding that, I looked at it and I felt that it was a pick-em. And if it's clear and obvious, then VAR will come down much harder, perhaps, in its perception. But it clearly was doubt. The on-field referee didn't give it, so the VAR comes in behind it. Yeah. And unless it's clear and obvious, then the VAR is not going to be so robust. I suspect, from their point of view.
I think. But the narrative at the beginning of the season was.
Why was it clear and obvious?
Because
I couldn't see the contact.
Well,
I've looked at it 3 times this morning,
and
it looks like but it's a real pick-em, isn't it?
Well, maybe my eyes are deceiving me. There's contact, but even the
then the referee is biased, and so VAR.
I don't think he's biased, but
it's ridiculous, isn't it? If it's clear and absolute,
well, it is
contact,
clear. The Forest lad was interviewed after. He said, "When I touched him, I felt the worst, but I got away with it." The lad
I didn't hear that. Is that what he said?
I watched the interview.
Okay.
So they got one wrong, but the point is, I think
it's a massive wrong, then, isn't it?
Yeah. Hold on. So let me just go back to my original point. Well, my point I was trying to make. There was a message sent out at the beginning of the season to try and eradicate, and rightly so, these silly penalties where someone gets touched and they fall over like a deck of cards. So this contact doesn't always mean a penalty. I'm not an advocate of that.
Yeah.
I hate seeing these over-exaggerated dives.
But that's on the field stuff, isn't it? VAR gives you that second whammy on the field to look at it in that moment in time where it's at 100 miles an hour and they go down like you say, a sack of potatoes. But VAR comes in with a different context because it looks at it in isolation and can see whether someone's thrown himself to the ground like a refugee from the film Platoon.
But the message was from VAR and the referees, from the VAR as well, to try and not give as many penalties as last season for just contact, where players go over stupidly. So I think
that's a narrative that we're advancing. But we don't know if that's a message that's gone between VAR to the on-field pitches.
It was talked about yesterday. Sam read it out. It was read out on the radio about the. It was brought out at the beginning of the season.
So you think the technology came up short yesterday?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, but the main thing is it's there, Danny. I know you think the technology didn't get it right, but the main thing is for such an important fixture with so much riding on it, hence we're talking about Forest and the disappointment of Huddersfield, it has to be there. It's got to be implemented.
Well, yes and no, because the argument...
Danny, it's got to be.
Well, if it's got to be, then it should be that the Championship, it's one game in the whole season that it's there for the Championship, which isn't right. It's either there or it's not.
It should be through the whole pyramid.
Yeah,
absolutely. And
exactly.
it should be funded through football, and the FA should fund it through the fees that they take out of the game in terms of transfer fees and 3% on season tickets and whatever else, right? Yeah. But the bottom line is we're looking at this and saying to ourselves, you're advancing the position that the narrative, the underpinning narrative was get rid of these soft penalties, right?
That's what they were trying to do after last season.
This doesn't look like a particularly... If there's contact to it, and I thought it was 50-50, you think it was clear, and the defender's already said it, right? Yeah. So then it's not 50-50, and it's not someone throwing himself to the ground. There's genuine contact. I didn't think there was. On that basis, how in God's name has VAR missed it? How in God's name has the referee? And you're saying because there's an underpinning narrative.
That's what they're suggesting.
Or, as Trevor Sinclair would like you to believe, there's a corruption mechanism that the PGMOL is funded by the Premier League, and the Premier League only want big clubs in it. That's what Trevor's been saying.
I don't know. My reasoning behind it is the decision not to give it was given with good intention. There was no malice or a corruption. It was just a case of they thought he over-exaggerated the dive, because once he got touched, if you see it, he did fling himself more than he had to.
I was there, Danny. I'm kind of with Simon. It could have gone either way. I mean, honestly, even with VAR, at the end of it,
of course, it could have gone either way.
Yeah, of course. But on this occasion,
every decision can go either way.
Not given. Yeah, but it's hardly stone law. It's not even close to given. It wasn't awarded. So at the end of the day, the technology was used in the very fashion it's designed for.
But they got it wrong.
And it was play on.
Yeah, but they got it wrong.
So the debate's over, really.
Well, it's pointless. Yeah, it's fruitless. I agree. But they got it wrong.
But the accusation is about VAR not being fit for purpose. Danny's extrapolating it up, and I understand why he's doing it.
There's certain aspects of VAR that are always going to be a human decision, human error.
Is there slight hypocrisy with your good self regarding technology? Because way back when you were putting a line right through it, we ain't having it.
No, I still would. Give me a choice, and I'd get rid of it.
In this instance,
because I don't think it gives. I don't think the benefit outweighs. I don't think it gives us enough.
But a moment ago, you said it should be implemented in all championship games.
No, what I said was, if you're going to have it for one, you should have it.
That's absolutely right. But the point is that if you're suggesting that the on-field, so we are happy and we are not happy, and neither will you be happy when a referee makes an on-field decision that's wrong. You will be up there on your soapbox like everyone else is. These referees.
I've never done that.
Everyone's done it. We've all done it. We're all guilty of it.
You can say it's a wrong decision.
But this
is fine.
But VAR is supposed to be an aid memoir, a more than aid memoir. It's supposed to be a supporting mechanism that underpins refereeing errors, because we've now made it impossible. You can make an error, he can make an error, managers can make an error, owners can make an error. The only people that can't make an error, apparently, is referees. Right? They're not allowed.
But they're still making errors.
So now they've got a tool to do it, and you're sitting on the sidelines going, no, I don't want that tool.
Yeah, because they're still making errors.
Well, because the interpretation of it, if we believe that the interpretation is based upon some preconceived perception that we mustn't give cheap penalties, that's subjective. You're saying, and Sam's notes are saying, that there's a guideline that no one's actually ever seen, because it probably doesn't actually exist.
I'll get it up for
there's a guideline saying, by the way, if it looks like a cheap penalty, and it walks like a cheap penalty, and it talks like a cheap penalty, it's a cheap penalty. Don't give it.
It's about exaggerated falls and dives they were trying to eradicate after last season, because there was so many.
But you think it's a penalty?
I do think it's a penalty.
So it's not exaggerated dive, then,
is it? Players as well, Danny.
No, but that's subjective, and that's the problem with VAR. Too much of it's subjective. It's human error. It's just a referee in a different place.
But do you
just
believe
two
that?
referees?
Because everything's about interpretation, right? In the moment, you can legislate for human error, can't you? You can legislate for that referee at 100 miles an hour with everything going on around him, right? You can legislate for it. But we don't, but we can legislate for it if we're being reasonable.
Yes.
But VAR, you can't legislate for it. You're sitting in front of a digital screen with your bleeding lines going left, right, and centre like something
away
out of
from
Tron,
blame,
right? And you've got no reason to be subjective.
Well, I'll give you.
You can be completely objective.
Well, no. The reason sometimes
you're folding under questioning.
Who is the reason? The reason sometimes is, of course, is that
his knuckles gone white.
It's your friend out on the pitch. He's there, and you're there, and you're.
You're going to get into that narrative now. Danny Kelly peddles that narrative that it's a little club together again. Hang on a second, let's not make one of them look bad.
You don't believe in human nature, then, do you?
I do believe in human
Simon,
nature. I believe in the worst of it.
If I was in the
I sit with it on a daily basis.
If I was at Stockley Park and you were on the pitch and I've got a relationship with you,
I'd want your job. I wouldn't want to be in VAR.
Right,
I'd want to be on the pitch. So I'd be getting you out of it by going, overturn it.
See,
Danny,
you're now
if that
making
was
a
the case
joke.
and he's
You're
on the
now
pitch, we're
making
all
a
laughing at
joke.
his legs.
You're now making a joke of
I
something
speed much
serious.
like myself.
It
We
would be
had to.
human nature for me to try and protect you and back you. And keep you from,
Is it?
keep you from criticism. Yes.
So basically, then the criticism comes that
was
you're all a bunch of whatevers, right?
No.
So
I think there's history
I
with
would
Tierney.
rather protect my mate who may not be my mate, right? Than that, and then embrace the whole overriding
Have you got
aspect of
any
people.
mates?
No, I haven't.
No.
Oh, and I'm glad to not have any mates because I'm like Groucho Marx. I want to be in a club where other people want me to be a member of. But the point is that you'd rather bring disrepute upon the whole framework. Is that what you'd rather do?
No,
we'd rather say that bring this whole thing down because it's all crap.
I'm saying on
Well,
occasion.
do you understand what I'm saying by that?
On occasion, human nature would kick in, as it does when a referee gives a decision in a stadium full of 70,000 home fans and Fergie on the touchline.
So you believe
Human
there's a little
nature
conspiracy that we
Not
all must get together. It's
conspiracy,
like a
no.
double handshake.
No,
it's
it's
like
called
the
human
Masons.
human
Referees
nature.
are like Masons, are they? They've got a
If you-
secret handshake.
If you read human nature in dictionary, it doesn't match up with conspiracy, or in the thesaurus for that matter. It's not the same thing.
Let's get out of this. We're in a cul-de-sac of VAR.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.